understanding, costs about $18 a boarding ride. So why are we cutting profitable runs like the 12, the 94, and making an extension to the 12 like the 21? It doesn't make any sense. One thing that I'm also concerned about is, I'm glad to see that we're purchasing new buses, but how quickly are we going to deploy these new buses? I understand that it took nearly half a year to implement our brand new 3000 buses, but at the state of things, Merlo Garage, which has all those flexible Metro buses and maybe 40 of those new Flyers, Flexible isn't even in business anymore. They haven't been in business since 1996. It gets expensive to keep having to maintain those buses because they're so old and they're so unreliable. When one of them breaks down, we have to keep scrapping parts from other Flexibles, and if we can't do that, well, that's just another bus out of revenue service. And as I said before, and Mr. Stovall actually talked to me about this previously, I had made a proposal for a new type of bus called the Enviro 500, which is in use by Community Transit up in Everett, Washington, and the articulated version of our 2900s, which is and this is a hybrid, this is a DE60 LFR. It's a great bus, and it provides a lot, and it transports a lot more people than what we currently have right now. I know we had a little bit of a disaster with articulated buses in the early 90s, but the fact is that these buses are American made. They're not Hungarian, so I have no question, there's no question in my mind that these buses would be reliable for our bus fleet. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, that concludes the public testimony on this item. So what we have before us today is a request from staff to consider approving the proposed fiscal year budget for 13 and 14 and sending off to the Oklahoma County Tax Supervisor and Conservation Commission to get the process going. And I think we've got a hearing tentatively scheduled for April 24th. That's the way it looks right now. So I guess what I want to do is get a feeling from the board here about where we are on this. I think we heard some very good testimony today, and I think some things that I know I would like to see us look into a bit more. I want to make sure we have time to actually, if we want to make some policy decisions on these, we have an opportunity to put it into the budget and change the budget, which I think we do, but I want to get verification from you. So things I've heard that I think we'd like to get some information on. This is one I haven't seen. I'd really like to see the fares for the other properties throughout the United States and understand where we are in relation to that. I think I saw that information a year and a half ago or so, but I think it'd be great to update it and see where it is. Hopefully that's not a big piece of work. I assume. So get that for us. Per Director Prosser's recommendation, I would really like to see Opal and our finance folks get together and look at the information to figure out where discrepancies are, and if there is discrepancies, obviously we need to make amendments. We need to come back to us, and we will do a report at the next meeting that says if we need to make any of those changes as a result of this. And I think you'll flag for us any big policy differences that we have as a result of that, because it could just be numbers, but there may very well be some other things that they're asking for when we look into this. On a 3-hour transfer, this is not a new issue. I appreciate you folks continuing to bring it back to us for consideration. I think I would like to also have a report back on that issue, and maybe it's almost a position paper or a briefing paper on that one that describes, again, the 3-hour transfer as proposed by Bus Riders United and Opal. What it really costs, we think, what's the impact on the ridership, and what are the other considerations we need to take into account when we do that, so we can actually have an informed dialogue and discussion about that. As we want to, we can make changes and get that in the budget also. So those are the things that I heard from the discussion that were important. Have I missed anything first off from the board here that we'd like to have some further information on? That I think we have some time to get some reports back, incorporate into this. I got this stuff? Okay, all right. So what's before us is a resolution to move this on to TSCC. And I want to answer now, based on that, even though we're submitting this now, it's still proposed. It's not the final budget. We can make amendments to that, probably up to and all the way to the end of our budget dialogue discussions, unless there are major changes that would require us to go back and have another hearing. Am I correct on
And
that?
I don't hear anything that would be of that order of magnitude.
I didn't think so either. So I guess based on that, maybe we should see if there's a motion to approve Resolution 13-03-19, which does approve the proposed fiscal year 2013-2014 annual budget for submission to the Multnomah County Tax Supervisor and Conservation Commission.
I move.
I have that motion.
Or so moved.
I'll second. I have a motion and a second. So let's talk about this and see if we're ready to take a vote. So discussion on that motion?
No, given that it is just a motion to move to the next stage of the process, and it does not preclude further discussion, further investigation, and possible changes, I think it's appropriate to do that and move the process forward.
I agree with Director Prosser in regards to, this being the next step in the process. I mean, the TSCC has to approve, has to review and approve. It's one of the things I do want to say in regards to what we're going through here, and this is in response to some of the testimony this morning. I think one person said, we've been looking at some challenges for 10 years. Well, this is a system that's been around for a lot longer than that, and it's a concept of turning a battleship. And everybody knows that proverbial statement. And some of the things that we're looking at here are pretty tremendous things that we have to tackle. One of my favorite comments in the Oregonian the other day was in regards to some of the stuff that's going on down in Salem and Metro, and I think it was Council President Tom Hughes said, if Metro were to have TriMet and you gave us the same tools that they have today, we wouldn't be able to do anything. And that's the context of what we're dealing with here. Mr. Charles comments on the things that we're looking at down the road. And those are great comments and things that we certainly are considering. To the degree that I spent an enormous amount of time the other evening reading, first time I've ever done this, a complete bond issuance document.
I read it too.
So the thing is, it's a book, almost a novel. It's fact, not fiction. So there's a lot of information in there. There's some highlights in regards to how Wall Street looks at organizations and public organizations and liabilities and commitments for future revenues that have to be utilized to pay for debt service. Those are all concerns that they have, that we have, that we're trying to create a balanced approach. And I sometimes listen to the two sides, in a sense. Jared was sitting here and Mr. Charles was sitting here, and the context and the juxtaposition that you're both presenting in regards to making sure the organization is long-term sustainable financially, and then also dealing with the concept of making sure that we maintain service and, in a sense, expand service. Those are all those are competing things that need to be balanced. And it's not going to be something that we're going to fix in a one-year budget. But this is something that certainly has been risen to the highest levels of review. Mr. Charles has been successful in making sure that OPEB is being talked about. It's something that not just one individual has, but the agency has also pioneered getting that information there. And there's additional things that we're going to have to do for transparency. Now, this is not an indictment against the folks that do this on a daily basis within the agency. I've got good faith in them. But these are things that a complex organization and a public organization has to deal with every single day and every single year. So, I won't make this statement, just trust me, but I will make the statement that we as a board are working hard. We have a number of things that we're looking at every single year and every single day as an organization. And certainly, this will play itself out over time. And I've been on the board a year. I've learned a lot in the last year in regards to what it takes to manage a transit agency and an agency that's doing big capital projects. You don't just change this thing, midstream. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of people to make sure the organization moves forward. And all this is just in regards to this budget. As we move to this next level, we are certainly very open. And I've spent time last year with Opal and Bus Riders Unite. I spent time individually with Mr. Charles. I've spent time with some other folks in regards to their transit needs, and it's all been something that I've taken and inculcated in a way that that's going to help our decision making, my decision making individually. So none of that's lost on moving forward and getting this over to the TSCC. The discussion will continue, but I'm supportive of making sure that this budget moves along in the process that it needs to make sure that we have an opportunity to get it, to move forward, take in the additional comments, and finally get the approval later on in the year.
Thank you. Dr. Bethel, do you have any further comments?
I concur that this is just only moving us to the next step of the process, which has to happen in order for us to reach the ultimate goal we have of a budget being in place by July 1.
Great, thank you. And I'm there also. So, let's just further discussion. There's a motion on the table to approve Resolution 13-03-19. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion is approved unanimously. All right. Thank you again all for appearing. I think you're going to see further discussion on a number of the issues you brought forward today, and I really want to thank you for coming. Okay, let's move on to Resolution 13-03-20, authorizing a contract with Siemens Industry to retrofit and upgrade East Side Max substation feeder breakers. And I'm sure everybody wants to know what a feeder breaker is.
I'll try to be brief here on this one. I do appreciate, Mr. Board President, members of the board. This is a contract with Siemens to actually rebuild original breakers from the Banfield project on the current blue line. These are akin to the home circuit breakers you got, but they are megabit in terms of their actual, and also very technical pieces of equipment. And so the cheapest way that we can get to a rehabilitated breaker here is actually with the original manufacturer Siemens, send those equipment back to be rebuilt, retested, and then reinstalled in a like new condition, and that is cheaper than buying new breakers and doing a replacement. So with that, I'd be very happy to recommend approval or ask our local electrician for help if there's questions.
And the cost is $630,000 over a 6-year contract. Is that what I'm seeing? That's right. Okay. Other questions?
Just one process question as to how this is going to happen. I understand that Siemens is going to actually take one of our feeder breakers and then rebuild it and put it back. My question happens to be, when they take one out, what goes in place of it until the...
We have spares.
Oh, okay. Now that helps me out. That helps me out. Thank you.
They put a large penny in there.
Yeah, I remember those days.
All right, other questions from the board? Okay, is there a motion to... I'm sorry.
I move approval of Resolution 13-03-20.
Thank you. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, then. All those in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 13-03-20 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved unanimously. All right, moving on to the third resolution, which is Resolution 13-03-21, authorizing a modification to the contract with Hoffman Construction Company of Oregon for renovation of the Center Street building. Mr. General Manager.
And Mr. President, members of the board, as Dan Blocker noted to you at the briefing, we actually have now ready for you the actual pricing for the renovation of the Center Street building. Recall that you have previously approved a contract with Hoffman Construction Company, CMGC contract, which is again in our sort of style building this contract in layers. And you previously approved two modifications, one for pre-construction and one for pre-construction service and changes to the parking lots, and two for the demolition work. This is actually the rebuilding of most of the building. And so it is obviously the lion's share of this total contract, $12,413,952. It's all funded from the Portland-Milwaukee project. And also, this resolution would also allocate a 10% change order allowance on that work of about $1.241395. The very good news about Hoffman's participation in this project is that they have really grasped the disadvantaged business program and are doing a terrific job on it currently, and they're expected the expected outcome related to disadvantaged businesses in the order of 25% of the overall contract cost. I would also note that we will be coming to you with two additional layers of that CMGC contract in the future. One would be for the installation of the control center on the 4th floor of the building, and then the renovation of the 1st floor where the current garage and bus report areas are. And the design work on each of those areas are progressing. And what we do is when the design work is completed, we'll submit for contract for pricing, independent cost estimate, and then bring those separate actions back to you at that time. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, but do recommend approval.
All right, questions of the general manager on this one? I think we've rehashed this a number of times. This will definitely add some efficiencies, I'm sure, to the organization, which is great, and it is a wonderful opportunity to frankly use some of the federal funds to renovate our existing buildings, so we don't have to do out of our operating resources. So is there a motion to approve resolution 13-03-21?
I move approval of resolution 13-03-21.
Motion?
Second.
Second on the resolution. Is there further discussion on the resolution? Motion to approve the resolution? All right. With that, all those in favor of the motion to approve resolution 13-03-21, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions? Okay, motion is approved unanimously. Okay, let's move on to the last resolution here before we get the ordinances, and I do have an individual who would like to testify on these. There's actually 3 resolutions here. Resolution 13-03-22, 13-03-23, and 13-03-24, which are all authorizing modifications to contracts with 3 artists for the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Transit Project. And Ms. General Counsel, can we approve these with one motion?
You can.
Okay. All right. So first off, Mr. General Manager, do us
As members of the board, again, I think Dan did review these at your briefing with you, so I won't go into great depth on it, but I would just note that we do have a very active art program with the Portland-Milwaukee project, as we have with all of our light rail projects, and that follows the board's adopted policy of 1.5%. Portions of our capital project directly, that generally are sort of the architectural elements and the part that the public sees, so that overall creates a budget for the art program. These are 3 particular commissions of art at 3 very important stations. The descriptions of the art and their intent are also noted in the attachments to the resolutions. And we're very pleased that we have some very qualified artists and some very excellent work. The selections, by the way, are made by our Public Art Advisory Committee with the guidance of our project art staff. And I think the Art Advisory Committee does generally a very excellent job in terms of making sure that the art is represented in the communities that we serve, and that there is actually something at each of these stations that really reflect the character of the community that we're beginning to serve in these new stations. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions, but I know there is a potential testimony as well.
questions for the General Manager?
No, I believe at the briefing, Dr. Bethel, you requested some comments on the art program.
Well, yes, my request was to give the name and some information about it. And I was informed at that time that most of the stations, not all of them, do have some plaque or something that described it. And then there was some further information in the resolution today that gave that information. So that's satisfying.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Why don't we have Cheryl Snow come up, please? Want to testify? Good morning. Is it still morning? Yes, it is.
Good morning. Thank you. Directors, Mr. Chair, Mr. McFarland. My name is Cheryl Snow. I'm the Executive Director of the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, and I am here in my capacity as Chair of the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Public Art Advisory Committee. I am speaking here today in favor of all 3 of these resolutions and also in support of the process that our committee uses to both deliberate and reach decisions. We follow best practice standards in the field of public art. We always strive for transparency and equity, and I believe we have succeeded in these efforts. The committee's project oversight has ensured me that our work is guided by competent professional staff. Our art contracts and budgets are very well managed and serve the needs of these various projects. All of the work that we have recommended for commission will provide both good value for dollars spent and are in total within the established budget, We believe that these projects together will leave long-standing benefit for ridership and for the general community. I encourage you to support these resolutions.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you hanging around to testify, express your support. Hopefully you'll learn some more about TriMet too. So with that, do I hear a motion to approve resolutions 13-0322, 1303-23, and 1303-24?
I move approval of all three resolutions.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion on the part of the board? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution approving these three resolutions, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Nothing? Approved unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to move into our ordinances, and we have two of those. Ms. General Counsel, we're going to read those by title only. You want to start with Ordinance 327?
Sure. Ordinance number 327, an ordinance of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, TriMet, amending Chapter 14 of the TriMet Code to revise the definition of net earnings from self-employment. And this is simply our, typically annual, but this is because of fiscal cliff legislation. It ties our code to the Internal Revenue Code, brings it up to date.
Thank you. And we did have this first reading at our last meeting.
Correct.
Our last regular meeting, and we did have a public hearing, and so I guess I would look to the board to see if they had any additional questions or concerns after looking at it over that period. Seeing none, then, do I have a motion to approve ordinance number 327, amending Chapter 14 of the TriMet Code to revise the definition of, quote, net earnings from self-employment, end quote?
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second? Okay, with that, we need to do a roll call vote.
Correct.
So if you'd please call the roll.
Thank you. We'll start with you, Board President Warner,
Aye.
and Board Member Bethel,
Aye.
Board Member Stovall,
Aye.
and Board Member Prosser.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the second ordinance, number 328. Ms. Grant.
Yes, thank you. It's ordinance number 328. An ordinance of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, TriMet, amending TriMet Code Chapter 2, Board Meeting Rules. And this is an amendment, as it says, to Chapter 2. This has not been updated since 1990. And it simply brings our rules in conformance with state law and our past practice.
Thank you. And I would point out this is something that is a living document that we can amend on a regular basis if we desire to make further changes to help our operations. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So with that, we did have the first reading and a hearing where we did have some testimony at our last meeting. Are there any questions by the board on this item? Okay, hearing none. Is the board ready to make a motion that we approve ordinance 328?
I move the approval of ordinance number 328.
Thank you. I hear a motion. I have a second. All right. Any further discussion? All right then.
Roll call.
Please do the roll.
Okay, thank you. Board President Warner,
Aye.
and Board Member Bethel,
Aye.
Board Member Stovall,
Aye.
and Board Member Prosser.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Well, that's the end of our regular business meeting. Is there any other further business that to come before us today from the board? Hearing none, then I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Oops,
If I may just real quickly, notice in our correspondence, we have several emails related to the non-represented raise
yes, we did.
issue. And you sent out, nice little acknowledgement to the people. But what I'm wondering is if it would be worthwhile to follow up with a little more information for them. Because as I was reading through this, I think there were some misconceptions. It sounded like people weren't aware that the raises were in fact given after a period of time of no raises for non-represented, that yet during that time represented positions were receiving regular raises. That someone in one of these, I don't remember which one, said something about adding administrative staff, and when in fact this agency has been cutting administrative staff. I think it might be worthwhile just to have the clear fact response. Acknowledge their concern, acknowledge our errors, but also, here's the situation.
That's what staff can follow up on. Okay, thank you very much. Good point. All right, with that, then the meeting is adjourned. We're going to move into our public comments, and I will point out, how's the board doing, by the way? Do we need any drinks, right? Or
How many?
we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 folks. Excuse me, 5. Need a quick break? Why don't we take a quick 5-minute break and then come back to the public comment?